The night over Hogwarts was quiet for one single breath. Then the sky tore. It was not like lightning. It was not like clouds. It was a clean rip in the air, like someone had cut a dark hole into the world. Black and gold light spilled out of it. The castle's old magic woke up fast. Windows rattled, torches flared, portraits snapped awake and started shouting. "Something is wrong," yelled a knight in a frame. "The wards," cried a fat wizard in a painting. "The wards are screaming." Minerva McGonagall was already out of bed. Her robe was half buttoned. Her hair was pinned tight like always, because even fear did not get to mess up her rules. She moved through the corridor at a sharp pace, wand in hand. Severus Snape glided beside her like a shadow. His face was hard. His eyes were already judging whatever they were about to see. "You felt it too," McGonagall said. "I would be a fool not to," Snape replied. Above them, the castle's ceilings trembled. The magic in the stone felt tense, like a fist closing. They reached the astronomy tower's staircase just as a low boom rolled through the air. Not loud like a cannon, more like the world itself had thumped a table. Students had come out into the hall. A few were crying. A few were staring up with open mouths. "Back to your dormitories," McGonagall snapped. Most of them obeyed at once. Hogwarts had taught them that voice. But Harry Potter did not move right away. Neither did Hermione Granger or Ron Weasley. They stood with their wands half raised, eyes wide. "Now," McGonagall said again, sharper. Harry swallowed. He pulled Hermione and Ron back, but he kept looking. Something inside him was prickling, like a warning. On the tower, the air above the railing twisted. The tear in the sky hung there, still open, still bleeding strange light. And something fell out of it. It did not tumble like a person. It dropped straight down, calm and steady, like it had decided exactly where it wanted to land. It touched the stone with a soft click. A tall figure stood up from the landing position as if gravity was a boring rule it had already mastered. A long black robe settled around it. A staff taller than a man rested in its hand, topped with a red gem that glowed like a watchful eye. The figure's face was a skull. Not a mask. A skull. Hollow eye sockets stared across the tower. A hush hit the crowd so hard it felt like a spell. Snape's wand snapped up first. McGonagall's followed a heartbeat later. The skeleton turned its head with slow care. It looked at the two professors. Then it looked at the students in the hall. It did not flinch. It did not blink, because it had no eyes to blink with. It spoke in a deep, calm voice. "This is not Nazarick." The words meant nothing to the wizards listening, but the tone meant plenty. This thing was not confused in a helpless way. It was confused in a dangerous way. Snape fired first. A flash of light, fast and hard. The curse struck the skeleton's chest and stopped. It hit an invisible wall a hand's width from the bone. The air rippled, like the spell had slammed into thick glass. Snape's eyes narrowed, but he did not look surprised. He just looked more certain. McGonagall's jaw tightened. "State your name," she demanded. "State your purpose in this castle." The skeleton tilted its head, like it was weighing what purpose meant. Then, from the corner of the stair landing, a first-year student stumbled. The floor shifted under his feet as the castle trembled again. He slipped toward the edge. A scream cut through the quiet. The boy fell. A hand of invisible force caught him midair. The student hung there, legs kicking. Slowly, gently, he floated back onto the stone, as if set down by careful hands. McGonagall's eyes flicked to the child. Safe, alive. Her grip on her wand did not loosen. The skeleton had not moved. Only its staff turned slightly, like it was pointing at the boy without pointing. It looked back at McGonagall. "I did not choose to arrive here," it said. "I will not harm the weak without reason." That was not comforting. Not really. It was a warning dressed like manners. Snape's voice was low. A creature that claims restraint is still a creature that can choose not to be restrained. McGonagall did not take her eyes off the skull. "And we do not allow threats in Hogwarts." The air around them tightened again. Hogwarts wards reacted like an old guard dog smelling blood. A thin ring of light crawled across the stone under the skeleton's feet. Ancient runes flared, trying to bind it in place. The skeleton looked down. Its head lifted again, slow and calm. For a second, the world felt wrong. Not broken, not loud, just wrong. Harry's stomach flipped. The torch's flames froze in mid-flicker. Dust stopped falling. Even the sound of someone's breath seemed to pause. Then the skeleton was standing 3 steps to the left. The binding runes were still under the place it used to be. Time snapped forward again. Torches flickered. Dust fell. People blinked, gasping as if they had held their breath without knowing it. Snape's eyes widened a fraction. It was the smallest crack in his control. McGonagall felt her heart punch once in her chest. That was not apparition. That was not a normal spell. That was the world being told to wait. And Hogwarts had felt it too. The castle's magic surged, angry now, protective. Footsteps echoed from below. Not fast, not panicked. Measured. Albus Dumbledore arrived on the stairs with his robe neat and his glasses straight, as if he had simply been woken for tea. He took in everything in one look. The torn sky, the strange staff, the skull face, the shaken students, McGonagall and Snape with wands raised. He did not lift his wand. Not yet. "Good evening," Dumbledore said softly to the skeleton, as if greeting a late visitor. The skull turned toward him. Dumbledore's blue eyes held steady. "My name is Albus Dumbledore," he continued. "You have entered a school full of children. I must ask you to lower your staff." The skeleton paused. It did not move the staff, but the pressure in the air eased, just slightly. "I will lower my force," the skeleton said, "when I understand your threat level." A few portraits gasped. Snape's lips curled. "It thinks it's in charge." Dumbledore gave Snape a brief glance that said, "Not now." Then he looked back at the skeleton. "You are standing inside Hogwarts," Dumbledore said. "That alone should tell you something." The skull stared at him. Harry watched, frozen behind a corner with Hermione and Ron. He could not stop staring at the staff. He could not stop thinking that this was not like any dark wizard he had ever seen. Hermione's whisper shook. That wasn't apparition. That was time. Ron swallowed hard. Can time do that? Harry's scar did not burn, not like it did when Voldemort was near. But his skin still prickled, like standing too close to a storm. Dumbledore's voice stayed calm. "Come with me. Let us speak somewhere safer." The skeleton's head tilted again. Then it turned and walked. It walked with the slow confidence of a king entering a room that belonged to someone else. McGonagall did not relax, but she moved to the side, guiding students back. Snape followed behind the skeleton like a hawk behind a rabbit. And above them, the tier in the sky began to close, as if the world had decided it had done enough damage for one night. But Hogwarts's wards did not relax. They tightened. They watched the stranger. And deep in the stone, something old and hidden seemed to shift, as if the castle itself had noticed a new kind of power walking its halls. The headmaster's office felt different when you walked into it under threat. The portraits watched with sharp eyes. Fawkes the Phoenix was awake, feathers gleaming. The sorting hat sat still on its shelf, looking harmless, but Dumbledore knew better than to underestimate anything in this castle. Dumbledore led the skull-faced figure inside. With a quiet motion, he sealed the door. McGonagall stood to Dumbledore's right. Snape stood to his left. Both held their wands. Neither looked ashamed of it. The skull stood in the center of the room without being asked to sit. It rested its staff on the floor with a gentle tap. That tap sounded far too loud. Dumbledore studied it. There was no breath, no heartbeat, no warmth in the air near it. Yet it moved with perfect control. It spoke with clear thought. Not a ghost, not a simple corpse. Something else. "Thank you for coming peacefully," Dumbledore said. "I came because your words showed caution," the skull replied. "Caution is useful." Snape's eyes narrowed. "And if he had not asked politely, would you have killed children to leave?" The skull turned its hollow gaze toward Snape. "I do not waste strength on those without value," it said. McGonagall flinched. Dumbledore did not. Dumbledore lifted a hand, palm open, like a gentle stop. "In this castle," Dumbledore said, Children have value beyond measure. The skull paused. Understood, it said, in the tone of someone filing away a rule for later. McGonagall's voice was sharp. State your name. The skull's head turned back to her. Another pause. A slow, careful pause. Dumbledore noticed something then. It was subtle. The pause did not feel like a threat. It felt like a decision being built. The skull finally spoke. You may call me Ainz. Snape gave a short, bitter laugh. A single name. How convenient. A single name is enough, Ainz said. Dumbledore nodded once. Very well. Ainz, tell us what happened. Ainz's staff shifted, just slightly, like an old habit. I was in my domain, Ainz said. Then a force I did not control seized me. I arrived here. I am searching for the cause, and for my people. McGonagall frowned. Your people? Ainz's skull did not show expression, but the air around him tightened for half a second. Then it released again. Yes, he said. Those under my protection. Snape watched every movement. And what are you? A wizard? Ainz was silent again. This pause was longer. Not because he did not know, because he knew too many answers, and none of them were safe. I am, Ainz said slowly, a magic caster. Snape's lip twitched. That is not an answer. It is the answer you can understand without breaking your mind, Ainz replied calmly. McGonagall snapped. Do not speak to him like that. Ainz looked at her. I speak to you as I speak to any who hold power in their world, he said, directly. Dumbledore stepped in before sparks could fly. You are not under attack at this moment, Dumbledore said. And neither are we. This is good. Let us keep it that way. He moved to his desk and did something very small but very important. He did not sit behind it like a barrier. He stood in front of it, out in the open. It was a quiet message. I am not hiding from you. Dumbledore spoke again. Ainz, you felt our wards try to bind you. Yes. And you slipped them. Yes. Snape's voice was quiet, almost pleased in a dark way. How? Ainz turned his skull toward Snape. I controlled the flow of time, he said simply. McGonagall's chest tightened. Dumbledore's eyes sharpened. Time magic was a myth in most wizard books. A rumor. A dead end. Something spoken about in whispers. Dumbledore did not show fear, but he did not pretend calm either. That is extraordinary, Dumbledore said. Ainz's staff tapped once. Extraordinary in your world, he replied, not in mine. Snape's gaze cut like a knife. So you are from another world? Ainz's silence answered before his words did. Yes, Ainz said. McGonagall's voice lowered. Then you are not human. Ainz did not deny it. I have no need to lie about what you can see, he said. My body is undead. McGonagall's face went still. Snape's expression did not change, but his eyes did. They went colder. Dumbledore breathed in, slow and steady. Undead. The word carried weight in wizard history. It carried fear. It carried stories of dark lords who raised armies and laughed while they fell. But this creature had caught a child. It had come peacefully. It had not struck first. That did not make it safe. It made it complicated. Dumbledore stepped closer. Not too close, just close enough that Ainz could not mistake the intent. In this castle, Dumbledore said, we will not attack you without cause, but we cannot allow unknown danger to live among students. Ainz's skull tilted. Then remove your students. McGonagall's eyes flashed. You do not tell us how to run Hogwarts. Ainz's voice stayed calm. Then do not tell me to be small. Snape raised his wand a fraction higher. You will obey, or you will be destroyed. Ainz turned to him. The air in the office went cold. Not a winter chill. A deeper cold. The kind that made your bones feel like they remembered death. Ainz did not move. But Snape's instinct screamed, as if a blade was pressed to his throat. Then Dumbledore spoke. Firm now. Severus. It was only a name, but it carried command. Snape's wand lowered a fraction, not because he stopped fearing, because he trusted Dumbledore's judgment. Dumbledore looked at Ainz. You will be watched. You will be limited in where you may go. In return, you will be given safety and access to knowledge. Ainz did not answer right away. Inside his skull, there was no face to show it, but his mind was racing. This world had rules. He had no Nazarick, no Albedo, no Demiurge, no guardians to handle politics or gather information. He was alone. That meant one thing: caution. He gave a slow nod. I accept temporary observation, Ainz said. On one condition. McGonagall's eyes narrowed. And what condition do you think you can set? Ainz's voice stayed polite. I require information, he said, and I require that you do not attempt to control my mind. Snape's eyes flicked. Legilimency. Ainz's skull turned slightly. I know the shape of such magic, he said. It will not succeed, but it will change my actions. Dumbledore nodded once. That is fair. McGonagall looked at Dumbledore like he had grown a second head. Dumbledore did not waver. Fairness is not weakness, Minerva. He turned back to Ainz. You will remain within Hogwarts for now, Dumbledore said. There are places you may not enter. There are spells you may not use. Ainz's skull tilted. And if I must defend myself? Dumbledore's voice was steady. Then defend yourself with care. Ainz paused again. This pause was the one that would become famous later. Portraits leaned in. McGonagall waited, stiff. Snape watched like he was ready to strike. Ainz's silence stretched, and in that silence everyone filled it with their own story. He is thinking of mercy. Some hoped. He is planning our deaths. Others feared. In truth, Ainz was doing something very simple. He was making a list. Rules of this world. Limits of these people. The power of this man with half-moon glasses. He finally spoke. Agreed, Ainz said. Dumbledore exhaled softly. Good. He flicked his wand and called a silver thread of magic that wrapped around the office like a quiet net. Not a cage. A warning system. Ainz watched it with interest. McGonagall noticed that interest. Not hunger, not anger. Interest. Like a scholar seeing a new kind of puzzle. And that, in a strange way, frightened her more than rage would have. Because rage was simple. Interest meant planning. By morning, Hogwarts felt like a school again. Almost. Students whispered in corridors. Older students swore they had seen a monster. Younger ones cried and begged to go home. Teachers moved in tight groups. McGonagall kept order by force of will. Snape kept order by fear. Dumbledore kept order by being calm enough that people wanted to believe him. Ainz did not appear at breakfast. That was a relief for some. It was also worse, because it left room for rumor. In the Gryffindor common room, Hermione's hands were shaking as she opened a book. It can't be a ghost, she muttered. It talked. It held a staff. Ron's face was pale. It was a skeleton, Hermione. Harry sat in a chair near the fire, staring at his hands. It didn't feel like Voldemort. Hermione looked up fast. How do you know? My scar, Harry said. It didn't burn. Ron let out a breath that sounded like he had been holding it for hours. So it's not him. Hermione's eyes did not soften. That doesn't mean it's safe. Harry nodded. He knew that. He also could not forget the way the air had stopped for a second on the tower. He had felt helpless, like a toy someone could pause. At lunch, an owl slammed into the Great Hall window and dropped a letter in front of McGonagall. Then another, and another. The Ministry was awake now. Dumbledore read the first letter and sighed quietly. McGonagall read over his shoulder. Her mouth tightened. Contain the entity, she read. Register it. Submit to Ministry evaluation. The safety of British wizard kind. Snape's voice was low. They want it on a leash. Dumbledore folded the letter. Calm but colder than before. They want control. And can they control it? McGonagall asked. Dumbledore did not answer. Because the honest answer was, he did not know. That afternoon, Dumbledore brought Ainz to the office again. This time there were more protections in place. A circle of runes on the floor. Silent alarm charms. A phoenix awake and alert. Ainz stepped into the room with the same slow confidence. He looked around once. "You have prepared," he said. McGonagall's voice was clipped. "We are not fools." Ainz's staff tapped once. "Good." Dumbledore began the tests, but he did them gently. He asked Ainz to touch a simple object, then a cursed one, to see what the castle felt. Ainz did it without complaint. He asked Ainz to step into a mild detection charm. Ainz stepped in, and the charm flickered, then went dark like a candle blown out. Snape's eyes lit up in a way Hermione would have called dangerously interested. "You broke it," Snape said. "I did not break it," Ainz replied. "It failed because it does not apply to me." McGonagall's throat tightened. Nothing should be outside the rules. Ainz turned his skull toward her. "Then your rules are smaller than you believed." Dumbledore raised a hand again. "Enough." He looked at Ainz with the same calm curiosity. "You said you need information," Dumbledore said. "We can provide books. We can provide answers. But I must ask something in return." Ainz's skull tilted. "What?" he asked. Dumbledore's eyes held steady. "I must know your boundaries," Dumbledore said. "Not your limits. Your boundaries. What you will not do." Ainz was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, clear and direct. "I will not allow those under my protection to be harmed," Ainz said. "I will not tolerate attempts to control me. I will not accept being treated as a creature to be caged." McGonagall's voice rose. "You are in a school." Ainz's voice stayed even. "Then do not poke a blade and call it a lesson." Snape's eyes narrowed. "And what about our people? Our children?" Ainz turned his skull toward Snape again. "If you do not attack me," Ainz said, "I will not harm them." McGonagall bristled. "That's not comfort. That's a threat." Ainz's staff tapped lightly. "It is honesty," he said. Dumbledore's face stayed gentle, but his mind worked fast. An undead king. Power beyond wand magic. A mind that spoke like a ruler, not a beast. And a deep need for information. Dumbledore decided on a new path. A controlled path. "You will be given access to the library," Dumbledore said. "The restricted section as well, under supervision." McGonagall's head snapped. "Albus." Dumbledore did not look away. "We learn, or we stumble blind." Ainz's skull turned slightly, and Dumbledore could feel it attention sharpening. Like a hungry mind, but not for flesh. For knowledge. "And who will supervise?" Ainz asked. Snape's lips curled. "Me." Ainz stared at Snape. Then, in a voice that sounded almost polite, he said, "Acceptable." Snape did not like that word. It made him feel tested. And he hated being tested. That evening, Hermione saw something she would remember for the rest of her life. She had stayed late near the library, half hiding behind a statue because she had told herself she was just passing by. Ron was with her, because he refused to let her do something dangerous alone. Harry was there too, because he had learned that trouble found him even when he did not look for it, so he might as well look back. Ainz walked into the library with Snape at his side. Madame Pince stood at the desk, stiff as a broomstick. "I will be watching," she hissed. Ainz turned his skull toward her. "I assume you always are," he said. Madame Pince's eyes widened. She looked like she could not decide whether to faint or throw him out. Snape led Ainz toward a table far from the students. A stack of books waited there already. Old books. Heavy books. Books that smelled like dust and secrets. Ainz sat. He opened the first book. He did not read like a normal person. He read like someone hunting. His skull stayed still, but his attention moved fast. Page after page. Quiet. Careful. Hermione's mouth went dry. "He's studying," she whispered. Ron's voice shook. "It's a skeleton doing homework." Harry's eyes stayed fixed on Ainz's hands. Bone fingers. Steady. Turning pages with care. Snape stood behind him like a guard. Every few minutes, Ainz paused. Not because he was confused, because he was thinking. And each time he paused, Snape stiffened, as if expecting an attack. But Ainz just kept reading. Hermione felt her fear change shape. It did not go away, but it mixed with something else. Curiosity. Ainz suddenly spoke without looking up. "This world uses spoken triggers and tools," he said, voice low. "Wands. Focus objects. Interesting. Snape's voice was flat. Do not speak as if you understand us. I understand enough to ask questions, Ainz replied. He turned a page, then paused again. The pause was long. Hermione held her breath without meaning to. Ainz finally spoke, voice calm. Your protective wards are impressive, he said. They are not perfect, but they are layered. Whoever built this place did not fear time. Snape's eyes flicked, sharp. And you do not fear anything. Ainz's skull turned slightly. You are wrong, he said simply. Snape's lip twitched. What could you fear? Ainz looked down at the book again. Then he said, quiet. Being alone. Snape froze. Hermione's chest tightened. Ron swallowed hard. Harry's grip on his wand loosened a fraction, without him noticing. Ainz turned the page again, and the moment was gone, swallowed by paper and ink. But it stayed inside the children watching, because monsters did not admit that. Not out loud. Far away, in a dark place where candles burned green, Lord Voldemort lifted his head. He had been in the middle of a plan. A small plan. A normal plan. Then the air had changed. Not like a door opening. Like a whole wall appearing where there had been space. He pressed long fingers to the edge of a silver basin. He did not see Ainz, but he felt the shape of him. Cold. Deep. Not human. Not like a Dementor either. Something older in spirit, even if it had arrived just now. Voldemort's red eyes narrowed. A new piece, he whispered. Nagini shifted near his chair, sensing his interest. Voldemort smiled, thin and sharp. Hogwarts hides it, he murmured. Dumbledore shelters it. Then it becomes mine. He rose, moving like a blade sliding from a sheath. He did not think like Bellatrix. He did not rush like a hungry dog. He planned. He adjusted. He wanted to know what the new thing was before he tried to crush it. So he decided on a test. A small strike. A probe. A taste of blood. He called his followers. The first attack came not at Hogwarts, but near it. Hogsmeade. A village that students loved because it felt safe. That night, older students were not allowed outside. But the village still had people. Shop owners. Families. A few visiting wizards passing through. Dumbledore stood at a window in his office, listening to the wind. Then Fawkes lifted his head, feathers rising. Dumbledore's eyes sharpened. Something had crossed a line. He turned. Minerva, he said, voice calm but urgent. Wake the staff. Something is moving toward Hogsmeade. McGonagall was already in the room. She had not really slept since the tear in the sky. Snape appeared a moment later, cloak already on. What is it? Snape asked. Dumbledore's gaze went to Ainz, who stood near the shelves, holding a book. Ainz's skull turned slowly. I feel hostile intent, Ainz said. Snape's voice was cold. Of course you do. You brought it. Ainz did not react. Perhaps. Or perhaps your world is simply violent. Dumbledore stepped between them without even looking like he was doing it. We protect the innocent first, Dumbledore said. That is the only rule that matters right now. Ainz's staff tapped once. Then I will follow, Ainz said. McGonagall's eyes narrowed. You will do nothing unless we tell you. Ainz's skull turned toward her. I will not allow civilians to die while you argue, he said. It was not cruel. It was simple. And that honesty again made McGonagall's spine stiffen. They moved fast. Not by broom. Not by thestral. Dumbledore used magic that bent space the way only the best wizards could. Ainz moved with them without flinching, as if distance was a small problem. When they arrived at the edge of Hogsmeade, the first scream already cut the air. A house window shattered. Dark figures moved between buildings like ink. Death Eaters. Masks. Cloaks. Wands like knives. Bellatrix Lestrange's laugh rang out, high and wild, as she fired a curse into the air just to hear people panic. Come out, little lambs, she sang. A shopkeeper stumbled in the street, trying to drag his child behind him. A curse flew. Dumbledore moved his wand, and the curse vanished into nothing. McGonagall's voice snapped like a whip. Protego! A shield flared in front of a group of villagers. Snape's spells flew low and fast, striking legs, disarming hands, dropping Death Eaters without killing them. Then Bellatrix saw them. She saw Dumbledore. She saw McGonagall. She saw Snape. And then her head turned, and her eyes landed on Ainz. The skull-faced king. The staff. The cold air around him. Bellatrix's smile stretched wider. "Oh," she breathed, delighted. "You're the new toy." Ainz did not answer her. He looked past her at the villagers, at the curses cutting the air, at the fear. He lifted his staff. Not high. Just enough. The red gem glowed, and the air changed. A wave rolled out from him. Not fire. Not wind. A feeling. A heavy, crushing feeling that pushed down on every living thing nearby. The villagers froze like animals sensing a giant predator. The Death Eaters froze too. Even Bellatrix's laugh broke in her throat for half a second. Fear. Pure fear. Harry would later call it the moment the world seemed to remember death. McGonagall's breath caught. She had faced dragons. She had faced dark magic. But this was different. Because it was not aimed like a spell. It was simply what Ainz was. Ainz spoke, voice low and clear. Leave. Some Death Eaters actually took a step back. Bellatrix did not. Her eyes shone brighter, like she had found a new game. You think you can order me? She shrieked and fired. Avada Kedavra. Green light shot straight for Ainz's skull. It hit the invisible wall around him and stopped again. The killing curse splashed like paint thrown against glass. Bellatrix stared, shocked for one heartbeat. Then she laughed even harder. Oh, I like you. Snape swore under his breath. Dumbledore's eyes narrowed, calculating fast. Ainz did not move. He did not need to. He lifted a hand. Not his staff hand. Just his bare-bone hand. And the street went silent. Every sound died, as if someone had wrapped the village in thick cloth. Bellatrix's laugh stopped. Her mouth kept moving, but no sound came out. Death Eaters shouted, but it was like watching fish in a bowl. Their voices were gone. Villagers cried out, but no one could hear it. Hermione was not there to name it, but Dumbledore understood at once. A silence field. Ainz had removed sound itself from the battlefield. It was control. Total control. Ainz's voice still carried, calm and clear, as if he alone had permission to speak. You attack without knowing your enemy, he said. That is foolish. Bellatrix's eyes widened. She tried to operate. She splinched just a little. Blood sprayed from her arm where she reformed wrong. She hissed in pain, then snarled. Anti-apparition wards. Hogwarts had them. Hogsmeade did not. But Ainz had just made the space around them behave like a locked room. Snape's eyes flicked to Dumbledore. This was beyond normal. Dumbledore raised his wand. But he did not fire at Ainz. He fired toward the Death Eaters, breaking curses, shielding villagers, moving people behind walls of stone. McGonagall transformed debris into barriers, pushing civilians into cover. Ainz took one slow step forward. The ground under a Death Eater's boots turned black, like shadow had become glue. The man tried to run. His feet stuck. He fell. Another Death Eater swung his wand at Ainz and fired a blasting curse. Ainz did not dodge. The invisible barrier around him caught it again. Ainz spoke one word. A dark spear of force hit the Death Eater's wand hand. The wand flew away. The man screamed soundlessly, clutching his wrist. Ainz was not killing them. He was breaking them. He was making sure they could not hurt anyone else. Bellatrix's eyes danced. She wanted to get closer. She wanted to feel what he was. She fired curse after curse. Green, red, black. All of it stopped. All of it failed. She began to look angry. Then her anger became something else. Respect. Not the healthy kind. The sick kind. The kind she only gave Voldemort. Her voice was muted, but her lips formed words. My lord will love you, she mouthed. Ainz watched her carefully. My lord, he repeated, tasting the phrase. That told him enough. This world had a ruler of darkness too. Ainz raised his hand again. The air behind Bellatrix rippled. Shapes rose from the shadow of an alley. Undead. Not a full army. Not a city of bones. Just enough. Skeletal warriors with empty sockets and rusted blades, summoned like tools, forming a wall between Death Eaters and civilians. McGonagall's stomach twisted. She hated it. Every instinct in her screamed that this was wrong inside her world. And yet, the undead did not attack the villagers. They protected them. They stood like guards. Snape's eyes narrowed. He did not relax. But he noted it. Bellatrix backed up a step, still smiling. But now the smile had tension. Because she understood something important. This was not a normal wizard. This was a war machine that could choose to be gentle. Dumbledore moved closer, voice carrying through Ainz's field, as if Ainz allowed it. "That is enough," Dumbledore said to the Death Eaters. "Leave, and you may live." Bellatrix's eyes flicked to Dumbledore, then back to Ainz. She lifted her wand, and her lips formed one more word. Even without sound, the hate was obvious. Mudblood. Then she flicked her wand toward a nearby doorway, where two children hid behind a cracked window. McGonagall's chest clenched. Snape moved. Dumbledore moved. But Ainz moved in a way that made both of them feel slow. For a brief moment, the world stuttered again. Not fully frozen like before on the tower. Just slowed. Enough. Ainz was suddenly in front of the doorway. His robe barely moved. He lifted his staff and tapped the stone. A clear dome of force formed around the children and their mother. Bellatrix's curse hit the dome and vanished like it had never been real. Ainz's skull turned toward Bellatrix. His voice was still calm, but the air around him sharpened. "Do that again," he said, "and you will learn what fear truly is." Bellatrix stared. Then, at last, she did what she had not done since she was a girl. She hesitated. In that hesitation, a second presence touched the battlefield. Not a body, not a shape, a thought. A cold mind pressing against the world, like a finger testing a bruise. Harry would later remember how the air suddenly felt thin. Dumbledore's eyes went hard. Snape's spine tightened. McGonagall's breath caught. Voldemort was watching. Not here in full, but near enough. Bellatrix's eyes lifted as if she could feel him too. Ainz's skull turned slightly, sensing the same thing. He did not know the name yet, but he recognized the type. A rival ruler. A predator with patience. Ainz spoke, not loudly but with a strange weight. "Show yourself." No answer came. Only the feeling of a smile in the dark. Then, far down the street, a Death Eater threw down a small object that burst into thick black smoke. A portkey trap. Or something like it. The smoke swallowed 3 of them at once. They vanished. Bellatrix stepped back into the shadow of a doorway, still staring at Ainz. She bowed. Not deep. Not respectful in a normal way. More like a player greeting a new opponent. Then she vanished, too, slipping through a prepared escape route like she had been planning it from the start. The silence field faded. Sound rushed back in like water breaking through a dam. Villagers sobbed. Children cried. A dog barked wildly. Someone shouted, "What was that?" Ainz lowered his staff. His summoned undead faded into dust. McGonagall looked at him, breathing hard. "You!" Ainz turned his skull toward her. "I prevented deaths," he said. McGonagall's voice shook with anger and fear at once. "You brought undead into a village." "They were tools," Ainz replied. "Your enemies were aiming to kill children." Snape stepped closer, eyes locked on Ainz. "You stopped the killing curse like it was rain." Ainz's skull turned to him. "I have defenses," he said. Snape's voice was quiet. "And if you decide we are enemies?" Ainz's answer was honest, and that made it worse. "Then your world will suffer," he said. Dumbledore spoke before McGonagall could explode. "That is why," Dumbledore said calmly. "We will do our best not to become his enemy." He looked at Ainz, eyes steady. "And why?" Dumbledore added. "We must understand you quickly." Ainz looked back at Dumbledore. For the first time, something in Ainz's posture softened a fraction. Not trust, but recognition. This man was not foolish. This man was a leader. Ainz's voice lowered. That presence watching us, Ainz said. It was your enemy. Dumbledore's face stayed calm, but his eyes carried weight. Yes, Dumbledore said. That was Voldemort. Ainz repeated the name, filing it away like a blade placed on a table. Voldemort, he said. Then now I understand the shape of this world. Snape's voice was bitter. You understand nothing. Ainz turned to him. I understand enough, Ainz said, to know that he will return with a better plan. Dumbledore's gaze sharpened, because he knew that was true. And as they stood in the ruined street with frightened villagers around them, a new truth settled over everyone like cold ash. This was not a strange guest anymore. This was a world-changing force. And the war at Hogwarts had just found a new center. Smoke still hung in the air over Hogsmeade when the sun came up. People stood in the street like they had forgotten how to go back to normal life. A shop window was cracked. A door had scorch marks. Snow had melted in ugly patches where curses hit the ground. Aurors arrived late. They always arrived late. They walked in tight lines with their wands out, acting like they owned the place. A few of them stopped the moment they saw the black scorch circles on the stone. One of them stared at the spot where the air had gone silent and swallowed hard. Albus Dumbledore stood near the center of the street, calm, tired, and very awake. Minerva McGonagall was speaking to a mother whose hands shook as she held her child. She kept her voice steady, like she could force the world to behave through tone alone. Severus Snape watched everything and everyone. He looked like he was standing in the cold on purpose, like discomfort was a tool. Ainz stood slightly apart, staff resting on the ground. He did not move much. He did not need to. People gave him space without being told. Some villagers stared at him with open fear. Some stared with confused gratitude. A small boy peeked from behind his father's coat and whispered, "Mum, that's a skeleton." His mother shushed him, then whispered back, "He saved you." The boy's eyes widened. That did not make the world feel safer. It made it feel stranger. An Auror with a square jaw and a stiff posture marched up to Dumbledore. "Headmaster," the Auror said, trying to sound brave. "The minister demands an immediate report." Dumbledore's eyes stayed gentle. "Of course he does." The Auror's gaze slid past Dumbledore and landed on Ainz. The man's throat bobbed. "And that," the Auror said, voice flattening. "That thing must come with us." McGonagall's head snapped around. "He is not a thing." The Auror looked offended. "Professor, it's an undead entity." Ainz's skull turned, slow and precise, until it faced the Auror. The air near the Auror went cold. Not like frost. Like the feeling of being watched by something that could end you. Ainz spoke politely. "You may try," he said. The Auror's wand trembled. He forced it steady. "I'm authorized." Dumbledore stepped between them without hurry. "I am also authorized," Dumbledore said. His voice was still soft, but the softness now had a hard edge under it. "And at this moment, my concern is the safety of these people, not the minister's pride." The Auror swallowed. He did not like the word pride. It hit too close to truth. McGonagall led the villagers away in groups, setting them up with hot blankets and calming charms. Snape moved like a dark wind through the crowd, murmuring quick instructions to the Aurors, correcting their positions, pointing out escape routes and blind spots, like he had done this 1,000 times. Ainz watched it all. He understood the pattern. This world had politics that tried to wear the mask of safety. He also understood something else. These humans were afraid of him. They were right to be. He looked down at the street where a killing curse had hit his barrier and vanished. In his own world, that kind of attack was common. Here, it felt like a line people did not cross lightly. And yet, they had crossed it anyway. Ainz's mind moved fast behind the calm. Voldemort, a dark lord, a leader with followers who would die for him. Ainz had faced rulers like that before. The difference was simple. Ainz was alone. That fact sat inside him like a stone. He did not show it. He could not afford to show it. By afternoon, The castle felt like a pot that was about to boil over. Owls crashed through windows with letters tied to their legs. Teachers grabbed them and read them in the corridors, faces tightening. Students whispered like they were spreading fire. "Did you hear? He stopped the killing curse. My brother says the ministry is coming. My dad says it's a monster. My mum says Dumbledore is hiding a weapon." The stories grew bigger every hour. Inside the Great Hall, Harry Potter sat with his friends and tried to eat. He pushed eggs around his plate and failed to swallow. Ron kept glancing at the doors as if expecting Ainz to walk in and sit at the staff table like a normal guest. Hermione had her book open. She was not really reading. She was just staring at words without seeing them. "Do you think it's evil?" Ron asked quietly. Hermione's eyes flicked up. "It said it wouldn't hurt children." Ron frowned. So Voldemort never says that," Hermione replied. Harry stared at the staff table. Dumbledore's seat was empty. McGonagall's was too. Snape sat there, alone. Dark eyes scanning the room like he could see every secret in one look. Harry's scar stayed quiet. That bothered him in a strange way. He had learned to trust the pain. No pain meant no Voldemort nearby. But this new danger did not follow that rule. That meant he had to use a different kind of fear. Hermione suddenly spoke, voice low. He used time. Ron's fork paused. Harry looked at her. Yeah. Hermione's eyes were wide behind her hair. Time turners are controlled, hidden, and they don't do that. They don't freeze the world. Ron swallowed. So what is he? Harry didn't answer, because he didn't know, and because the answer might be worse than any guess. In the headmaster's office, Dumbledore stood with Ainz again. This time, the room was not just guarded by spells. It was guarded by conversation. Dumbledore believed in that. Sometimes talk was stronger than a shield. McGonagall stood by the window, arms tight across her chest. Snape stood by a bookshelf, looking like he was part of the shadows. Fawkes watched from his perch, bright eyes sharp. Dumbledore held up a letter. "The minister wishes to send someone," Dumbledore said. "An inspector." McGonagall's lips pressed into a thin line. "I knew it." Snape's voice dripped with dislike. "They want to put their fingers into things they don't understand." Ainz's skull turned slightly. "This inspector is powerful?" McGonagall let out a humorless breath. "No." Snape's mouth curled. "But she is dangerous." Dumbledore looked at Ainz. "Her name is Dolores Umbridge." Ainz repeated it carefully. "Dolores Umbridge." McGonagall's tone sharpened. "She will pretend she's here for the children. She is here to control Hogwarts." Ainz's skull tilted. "And to control me." Snape's eyes fixed on Ainz. "And you do not like being controlled." Ainz's staff tapped once. "Correct." Dumbledore folded the letter. "Then we must choose our response." McGonagall's voice rose. "We refuse her." Dumbledore's eyes stayed calm. "If we refuse, the ministry will grow louder. They will accuse us of hiding a threat." Snape's voice was quiet and bitter. "They will do that anyway." Dumbledore nodded. "Yes." Ainz listened. He did not interrupt. Inside, his mind was turning the problem like a chess piece. If the ministry attacked Hogwarts, it would split the world's defenders. That helped Voldemort. If the ministry tried to chain Ainz, it might force Ainz to respond in a way that terrified everyone. That also helped Voldemort. Ainz spoke, calm. "Allow the inspector." McGonagall's eyes widened. "Absolutely not." Ainz's skull turned to her. "You misunderstand. Allow her presence. Do not allow her control." Snape's eyes narrowed. "That is a word trick." "It is politics," Ainz replied. "You are already in it." Dumbledore watched Ainz closely. "And what would you do if she attempts to bind you with laws?" Ainz paused. The famous pauses were starting to become a thing even here, even in private. Dumbledore noticed it. McGonagall noticed it. Snape hated it. Ainz finally answered, "I will not break your castle for her, but I will not obey her." McGonagall's voice was sharp. "That's not a plan. It is a boundary," Ainz said. Snape let out a low laugh that held no joy. "This is what I warned you about. He speaks like a king because he is one." He will treat our world like a board. Ainz's skull turned. And you treat it like a prison? Snape's eyes flashed. I treat it like something fragile. Ainz's voice stayed even. Fragile things break when you squeeze them too hard. Dumbledore raised a hand. Enough, he said, not loud, but final. The room settled. Dumbledore stepped closer to Ainz. You have shown restraint, he said. You saved lives. You did not kill those who attacked you. Ainz answered simply. Killing them would be easy. McGonagall's stomach tightened. Dumbledore did not flinch. That is why we are afraid, Dumbledore said. Ainz's skull angled down slightly, as if he understood the words as a fact, not an insult. Dumbledore continued, voice softer. And that is why we must find a place for you that does not require fear to be the only language. Ainz did not answer right away. Then he said quietly, I require knowledge. Snape's eyes narrowed. There it is. Ainz ignored him. He looked at Dumbledore. If you give me access to what you hide, I will give you access to what I am willing to share. McGonagall's voice snapped. We hide things for a reason. Ainz's staff tapped once. So do I. The air thickened for a moment, not with magic, but with two leaders testing each other. Dumbledore nodded slowly. We will proceed carefully, he said. You may study, but you will not roam freely. Not yet. Ainz's skull turned slightly. Acceptable. Snape's mouth tightened again at that word. Dumbledore added, and I must ask something else. Ainz tilted his skull. Dumbledore's eyes held steady. Your name. Your full name. McGonagall stiffened. Snape went very still. Ainz paused again, longer this time. He had chosen Ainz because it was simple, because it was a mask he could hold up without giving away too much. But a full name carried weight. In his world, it was a banner. In this world, it could be a weapon pointed at him. He spoke anyway. Ainz Ooal, he said. The portraits leaned in like gossiping old women. McGonagall blinked once, sharp. Snape's eyes narrowed, memorizing. Dumbledore repeated it softly, as if tasting the sound. Ainz Ooal. Ainz added calm. It is the name of my guild, the name of my home, the name I carry for those I protect. McGonagall's voice dropped. You said you were alone. Ainz's skull stayed facing Dumbledore, but his staff tightened in his hand. I was not always alone, he said. For one moment, the room felt quieter than the spells could make it. Snape watched the tiny crack. He spoke, voice low. That loneliness is a weakness. Ainz turned his skull toward him. It can be, Ainz said. Or it can be a lesson. Snape's eyes flashed. A lesson that power does not make you human. Ainz's voice did not change. I am not human. McGonagall flinched again, but this time it was not just fear. It was grief. Because she realized she could not rely on any normal rule of mercy or guilt. Dumbledore stepped back, giving space. We will prepare for Umbridge, Dumbledore said. And we will prepare for Voldemort. Ainz's skull turned slowly toward the window. Outside, the grounds looked peaceful. The lake shimmered. The trees swayed. Ainz said quietly, Your Voldemort will not stop. Dumbledore's answer was just as quiet. No. Ainz's staff tapped once. Then neither will I. Snape's eyes narrowed. That sounds like a promise. Ainz did not deny it. Dolores Umbridge arrived 2 days later in a carriage that looked too fancy for a school. She stepped out smiling, wearing pink like it was armor, and she carried a clipboard like it was a sword. Students watched from the entrance steps. Whispers ran like mice. That's her. Ministry. My dad hates her. My mum says she's sweet. Harry watched her walk up. Something about her smile made his skin crawl. It was the kind of smile you saw before someone told you you were wrong for existing. McGonagall greeted her with a face as polite as a locked door. Professor Umbridge, McGonagall said, stiff. Umbridge's smile widened. Headmistress in waiting, she replied as if it were a joke. McGonagall's nostrils flared. Dumbledore appeared behind them, calm as ever. Dolores, Dumbledore said warmly. Welcome to Hogwarts. Umbridge's eyes shone. Headmaster, she purred. Such a pleasure. Then her gaze drifted past him. To the side. To the tall, still figure near the stair. Ainz. Ainz did not hide. He did not step forward. He simply stood, like a statue that had decided to be present. Umbridge's smile froze for half a heartbeat. Then it snapped back, even brighter. "Oh," she said, voice high and sweet. "There it is." McGonagall's voice cut in. "He has a name." Umbridge's eyes flicked to McGonagall, then back to Ainz. "Of course it does," Umbridge said in the tone people used for pets. Ainz's skull turned toward her. Umbridge cleared her throat. "By order of the Ministry of Magic, you are to submit to evaluation and registration." Ainz did not move. He replied politely, "No." Umbridge blinked. "I beg your pardon?" Ainz's voice stayed calm. "No." Umbridge's smile twitched. "You may not understand the law here." Ainz tapped his staff once. The stone under it clicked. "I understand your intent," he said. "That is enough." Umbridge's eyes narrowed, then softened again into pretend kindness. "Headmaster," she said, turning to Dumbledore as if Ainz were furniture. "We must speak privately." Dumbledore nodded. "Certainly." Umbridge walked with Dumbledore, chatting like a bird. McGonagall followed, stiff. Snape drifted behind them like a shadow. Ainz remained where he was. Students stared. Ron whispered. He said no to the ministry like it was nothing. Hermione's voice was tight. It might be nothing to him. Harry watched Ainz's stillness. It was so controlled that it looked like confidence. Harry had learned the hard way that confidence could be real, or it could be a mask. And he was starting to realize Ainz wore masks like armor. That night, in the headmaster's office, Umbridge sat like she owned the chair. She did not. But she acted like it anyway. "The creature is an unacceptable risk," she said, tapping her quill on paper. "It must be removed." McGonagall's eyes flashed. "He saved lives in Hogsmeade." Umbridge smiled. "So did a properly trained Auror. That does not mean we invite an undead being into a school." Dumbledore's voice stayed gentle. "You have not met him properly." Umbridge's smile sharpened. "I have met enough." Snape's eyes were narrowed, watching her like he watched poison. Umbridge leaned forward. "I will issue decrees. I will set boundaries. I will ensure compliance." Dumbledore's eyes were calm, but the room felt colder. "You will not chain a guest in my school." Umbridge's voice stayed sweet. "Then perhaps the ministry will decide you are unfit to lead." McGonagall's hands clenched. Snape's gaze went darker. Dumbledore did not raise his voice. He simply said, "You may attempt your decrees. Hogwarts has stood for 1,000 years. It will outlast paperwork." Umbridge's smile went tight. "We will see." She stood, skirt swishing. As she left, her eyes flicked once more toward the corner of the room where Ainz stood, silent. Umbridge spoke to him like she was speaking to a slow child. "Remember," she said, "rules are rules." Ainz's skull turned toward her. His voice stayed polite. "Remember," he replied, "power is power." Umbridge's smile cracked for a blink. Then she walked out quickly, as if she suddenly remembered she had other places to be. When the door shut, McGonagall let out a sharp breath. "She will make this worse." Snape's voice was low. "She always does." Dumbledore looked at Ainz. "You were controlled," Dumbledore said carefully. "In your world?" Ainz's skull turned. "I was responsible," Ainz answered. "Responsibility is not control." Snape's eyes narrowed. "You think the difference matters?" "It does," Ainz said. Snape took a step closer. "Here is my warning, then. You are bored." Ainz did not react. Snape's voice stayed quiet, cutting. "Boredom makes powerful beings cruel. It makes them play games with lives." McGonagall's voice rose. "Severus." Snape ignored her. He stared at Ainz. "Do you know what I see?" Snape said, "I see someone who can end our war in a night. And I see someone who might decide it is simpler to end us too." Ainz's skull tilted. "Your fear is logical," Ainz said. Snape froze for half a second. He did not expect agreement. Ainz continued, voice calm. But your assumption is flawed. Snape's lip curled. And what assumption is that? Ainz's staff tapped once. That boredom is my weakness. Snape's eyes narrowed. Ainz's voice lowered just a little. Loneliness is... McGonagall's breath caught. Dumbledore's gaze softened, but his mind stayed sharp. Ainz looked at them, skull unreadable. I do not seek entertainment. I seek certainty. Snape's voice was bitter. Certainty does not exist. Ainz's reply was simple. Then I will build what I can. Dumbledore nodded slowly, like he had just found the real center of the problem. Ainz was not looking for chaos. He was looking for a fortress. And if he couldn't find one, he might make one. That same night, far from Hogwarts, Voldemort sat in a room where the walls were carved with symbols of old death magic. His followers stood in a half-circle, silent. Bellatrix knelt close to him, eyes shining. My lord, she breathed. He is glorious. Voldemort's red eyes narrowed. Glorious, he repeated, as if the word tasted sour. Bellatrix nodded fast. He stopped the killing curse. He froze the world. He spoke like a king. Voldemort's long fingers tapped the arm of his chair. A king, he murmured. Bellatrix leaned closer, almost trembling with excitement. Take him. Use him. Break Dumbledore with him. Voldemort's smile was thin. You assume he is like you, Voldemort said softly. You assume he will bow to strength. Bellatrix blinked. He should. Voldemort's eyes sharpened. He will not. Bellatrix's grin faltered. Voldemort's voice lowered. He is not human. He does not want what humans want. He stood. His robe slid like smoke. We will not attack him like fools, Voldemort said. We will not throw curses until we die. Bellatrix's face tightened with confusion. Voldemort continued, calm and cold. We will learn his rules. One of the Death Eaters shifted. Rules, my lord? Voldemort's eyes burned. Everything powerful has rules, even if it pretends it does not. He walked to a table where old objects lay under cloth. A cracked ring, a broken locket, a shard of mirror. Horcrux work, soul work, death work. He lifted the cloth from one item, a page torn from a book, covered in careful notes. He had been studying the old legends again. Not children's stories, real ones. He whispered to himself, Deathly Hallows. Bellatrix frowned. My lord. Voldemort raised a finger. She fell silent at once. An undead king, Voldemort murmured. A creature that commands death. His smile returned, slow. Then we do not fight him with fire, Voldemort said. We fight him with death. He turned to his followers. Bring me every text you can steal, he ordered. Founders' secrets, Unspeakables reports, any mention of a veil, any mention of binding, any mention of souls. Bellatrix's grin returned, even wilder. Yes, my lord. Voldemort looked into the dark like he could see Hogwarts through stone. Then he whispered, almost kindly, Ainz Ooal. He let the name hang in the air like bait. We will make you reach, Voldemort said. And when you reach, we will hook you. In Hogwarts, Ainz's nights became a pattern. He stood in the library with a stack of books that would have crushed a normal student. He read without sleep, because sleep was a human need, and he did not have human needs. Snape supervised, stiff and silent. Madame Pince hovered, angry and nervous, like a guard dog that wanted to bite but didn't dare. Hermione found excuses to be near the shelves. Ron complained, but he came too. Harry came because he needed to see danger with his own eyes. Ainz rarely looked up. When he did, he asked questions that made Hermione's brain light up like a spark. What is the limit of your wards? How do you anchor a spell to a place? Why does your magic require spoken triggers so often? Hermione answered where she could. When she didn't know, she admitted it. Ainz would pause. Then he would say something that sounded wise, but it was usually just him sorting the problem. Once, Hermione gathered her courage and stepped closer. Why are you learning? She asked. Ainz's skull turned toward her. You are the one who should understand that question, he said. Hermione swallowed. To get home? Ainz was silent. Then he said quietly, yes. Hermione's voice softened without her meaning to. Do you miss it? Your home? Ainz paused again. His staff tapped once, a small sound in the huge quiet library. I miss those under my protection, he said. Hermione's chest tightened. Ron whispered behind her. That's almost normal. Harry watched Ainz's stillness. He could feel something important under it. Not kindness, not evil, purpose, and fear. One night, something strange happened. Ainz walked down a corridor alone, escorted by 2 suits of armor that Dumbledore had animated as guards. Snape followed behind at a distance. The corridor was empty. Then a door that had never been there before appeared in the stone wall. No handle, no keyhole, just a line in the rock like a closed eye. Ainz stopped. Snape stopped too, wand up at once. What is that? Snape demanded. Ainz stared at the door. He could feel it. The castle's magic. Ancient, deep. It was not calling him like a friend. It was reacting to him like a lock, reacting to a new key. Ainz lifted a hand and touched the stone. The line in the rock glowed faintly. Then the eye opened. The door swung inward without sound. Cold air drifted out. Snape's jaw tightened. Do not. Ainz did not step in. He stood there, still as a statue, and considered. This was the pivot Dumbledore feared. A place Hogwarts had sealed from itself. A place that might hold answers. Or traps. Snape's voice was low. The castle does not open doors for strangers. Ainz replied calmly. Perhaps the castle recognizes death. Snape's eyes flashed. Or perhaps it recognizes danger. Ainz turned his skull slightly. Those are often the same. Snape's wand stayed pointed at the door. Ainz stepped back, slow. I will inform Dumbledore, he said. Snape did not lower his wand until the door slid shut again, sealing itself like it had never existed. But both of them knew the truth now. Hogwarts was changing, and it was changing because Ainz was here. The next day, Dumbledore stood with Ainz in front of the new door. McGonagall was there too, face tight. Snape stood closest, like he would throw himself into the doorway if needed. Dumbledore studied the stone line. I have walked these halls for many years, he said. This door has never shown itself to me. Ainz's skull tilted. Then it is not for you. McGonagall's voice was sharp. Or it is for him, and that is the problem. Dumbledore did not argue. He simply looked at Ainz. Ainz looked back. I will not enter without your agreement, Ainz said. McGonagall blinked. You won't? Ainz's staff tapped once. If I enter and trigger something, your children suffer. I will not waste that risk. McGonagall's eyes narrowed. That's not kindness. That's calculation. Ainz's voice stayed even. Yes. Dumbledore nodded slowly, as if he had expected that answer. We will prepare, Dumbledore said. We will gather protections. We will choose a time. Ainz turned his skull toward the door again. Agreed, he said. And with that, a new chapter opened. Not with a battle. With a locked room, and a castle that had started to treat Ainz as part of its oldest secrets. The preparation became Ainz's new routine. He did not pursue shopping or food or money. Those things were dust to him. He pursued what he always pursued when he was forced into a new situation. Information. Structure. Control. He began to map Hogwarts like it was a fortress. He walked corridors with silent steps, noting angles and blind spots. He watched how ghosts moved through walls. He observed how the moving stairs chose paths. He listened to portraits argue and learned which ones liked to talk. The running joke spread fast among the students. The Bone King is doing homework again. He's always reading. He pauses like he's thinking of the meaning of life. He's probably seeing the future. In truth, Ainz was building a chart in his head. Rules, patterns, triggers. Every time he paused, someone nearby whispered, "He's about to do something." And then he would just turn a page. Hermione found that both funny and terrifying. Snape found it unbearable. One evening, Snape cornered Ainz near a suit of armor. "You are walking the castle like you own it," Snape said. Ainz's skull turned. "I am learning it." Snape's eyes narrowed. "To do what?" Ainz answered honestly. "To defend myself. To defend my interests." Snape's voice was low. "And what are your interests?" Ainz paused. Then he said, quietly, "To find my people, to return home, and until I can, to prevent an unstable world from collapsing around me." Snape stared. "Unstable," Snape repeated, bitter. "We have survived." Ainz cut him off, not with volume, but with certainty. "Your Dark Lord attacks children," Ainz said. "Your government attacks its own school. Your rules depend on fragile trust. That is unstable." Snape's mouth tightened because he hated how true it sounded. Before he could reply, a soft little cough echoed down the corridor. Dolores Umbridge was standing there, smiling like she had just caught someone cheating. "Professor Snape," Umbridge said brightly. "And Ainz." She said his name like it was unpleasant on her tongue. "I have new educational decrees," Umbridge announced. "One of them concerns dangerous entities." Ainz's skull turned to her. Umbridge's smile widened. "You will be restricted to a single wing, for the safety of the students." Ainz replied politely, "No." Umbridge blinked again, same as before. It was becoming a pattern. "You cannot refuse," she said, voice tightening. Ainz tapped his staff once. The sound was small, but the hallway felt colder. "I can," Ainz said. Umbridge's smile went thin. She raised her quill like a wand. "Then you will be punished." Ainz's skull tilted. "Punished by you." Umbridge's eyes narrowed. "Yes." Ainz was silent for a long moment. Then he said calm, "You are not a threat. You are an inconvenience." Umbridge's face flushed pinker than her cardigan. Snape's mouth twitched. It was not a smile, but it was close. Umbridge took a stiff breath. "You will regret that," she hissed. She marched away, shoes clicking like angry little hammers. Ainz watched her go. Then he said quietly to Snape, "Her type believes paper can bind power." Snape's voice was dry. "Her type is often right." Ainz's skull turned. "Then your world is weaker than I assumed." Snape did not answer, because again the truth was too sharp. Dumbledore made a choice he did not make lightly. He contacted an old ally inside the Ministry. Not Fudge's people, not Umbridge's. Someone who cared about knowledge more than control. An unspeakable. A person who worked in the Department of Mysteries. A place that held the things the wizarding world did not like to explain. And if Ainz wanted to understand death and souls in this world, that place mattered. Ainz stood in Dumbledore's office when Dumbledore told him. "The Department of Mysteries is dangerous," Dumbledore said. "Even to me." Ainz's skull tilted. "Danger is acceptable if it brings information." McGonagall's voice snapped. "No student is going." Hermione, standing behind a shelf, froze. Ron beside her mouthed. "Told you." Dumbledore's eyes flicked toward the shelf, as if he had known they were there all along. He did not scold them yet. He looked back at Ainz. "You will go with me," Dumbledore said. "And Severus." Snape's eyes narrowed. "I dislike being your escort." Dumbledore smiled faintly. "You dislike most things." Ainz accepted it. Because it was a doorway into the world's hidden rules, and because he could feel something building in the background. Voldemort was not done. Ainz had seen that kind of mind before. It did not quit after losing a skirmish. It adapted. The night before the planned trip, Hogwarts shifted again. Not with a door this time. With the dead. It began with nearly headless Nick drifting through a corridor too fast, his face pale even for a ghost. He burst into the Gryffindor common room wall and startled the students so badly that half of them screamed. "Nick!" Hermione shouted, jumping up. "What's wrong?" Nick's voice wavered like a candle flame. "Something is pulling," he said. "Something is tugging." Harry's skin prickled. "Tugging what?" Nick's eyes, usually friendly, now looked scared. "Us," he whispered. "The castle. The air. The place between." Then he faded out like smoke. Hermione's heart hammered. Ron's voice shook. Ghosts don't get scared. Harry's scar stayed quiet. But Harry felt something else. A cold pressure, like the air had forgotten warmth. Outside, the lake was still. Too still. The next sign came from the portraits. They began to argue louder than normal. They shouted about shadows in the halls. They screamed about the veil. They whispered about death walking. McGonagall gathered teachers in the corridor. Snape's face was stone. Dumbledore's eyes were focused and hard. Ainz stood among them, staff in hand. The castle felt wrong to him now. Not because it was weak, because something was interfering with its deep magic. Ainz spoke quietly. "This is targeted." Dumbledore's voice was low. "Yes." Snape's eyes narrowed. "Voldemort." Ainz did not know Voldemort's full plan, but he recognized the shape. A hook. A trap built from the rules of this world. Ainz's skull turned slightly toward the walls. The castle was reacting to him and to this new threat at the same time. It was like two storms meeting. Dumbledore's voice was firm. "Minerva, lock down the school." McGonagall nodded. "Already done." Dumbledore looked at Ainz. "Can you sense it?" Ainz's answer was simple. "Yes." Dumbledore's gaze sharpened. "Where?" Ainz's skull turned toward the lower levels. "Below," he said. Snape's jaw tightened. Not again. They moved fast. Not running like children. Moving like people who knew exactly what could happen if they were too slow. Down staircases. Past suits of armor that turned their heads to watch. Past portraits that whispered, "Be careful," like the castle was speaking through mouths it didn't own. They reached a corridor near the dungeons. The air was colder here. Not normal cold. A despairing cold. Harry, under the invisibility cloak with Hermione and Ron because of course they had followed, felt his stomach drop. Hermione gripped Harry's sleeve. "That feels like Dementors." Ron's teeth chattered. Why would Dementors be here? Harry didn't answer. Then he heard it. A slow, wet whispering. Not words, just the sound of something feeding. At the end of the corridor, the air darkened. Black shapes slid into view. Dementors. More than one. Not two. Not five. A swarm. They floated like moving shadows. The temperature dropped so fast that frost formed on the stone. Students somewhere above screamed. Ainz stepped forward without fear. Dementors fed on human despair. He was not human, but the humans behind him were. McGonagall's voice snapped. "Patronus." Silver light burst from wands as teachers arrived behind them, forming a line. The Dementors hissed and pulled back a little. Then something else tugged at the air again. The Dementors stopped retreating. It was as if someone had grabbed them by chains and pulled them forward. Dumbledore's eyes narrowed. "He's drawing them." Snape's voice was tight. "He's using them." Ainz's staff lifted. He did not cast a Patronus. That was not his magic. He cast a barrier instead. A clear, hard dome of force spread across the corridor. The Dementors slammed into it and bounced back, like insects hitting glass. But the tugging continued. Ghosts began to drift out of walls in confusion and pain, flickering like faulty lanterns. Nearly headless Nick appeared again, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. He was being pulled toward something deeper in the castle. Ainz's skull tilted. "This is soul manipulation," he said. Dumbledore's voice was firm. "Yes." And in that moment, Ainz felt the true pressure. Not a force that could hurt him directly. A force that could hurt everything around him. That was the difference. In his world, he could win battles by crushing enemies. Here, the enemy was bending the rules of the place itself. If Hogwarts broke, children died. If the ghosts were torn apart, the castle's old magic might unravel. Voldemort was not aiming at Ainz's body. He was aiming at his environment. He was aiming at what Ainz would try to protect. Ainz understood. And in understanding, he felt a cold respect for his enemy. Dumbledore made a choice. "Back," he said to the teachers. "Protect the students, now." McGonagall hesitated. "Albus." "Go," Dumbledore said, stronger. McGonagall obeyed. because she trusted him even when it hurt. Snape stayed. Of course he stayed. Ainz stayed too. Dumbledore looked at Ainz. "We must find the source," he said. Ainz nodded. "Yes." Snape's voice was tight. "And if it's a trap?" Ainz replied calmly. "Then we handle it." Snape hated how easy Ainz made words sound. They moved deeper. The Dementors pressed against Ainz's barrier like a tide. Their hungry whispering scratched at the mind. Harry felt his knees wobble under the cloak. Hermione's breathing turned shallow. Ron made a small whimper he tried to swallow. Harry's scar still did not burn. But his mother's scream echoed in his memory anyway, pulled up by the Dementors like a hook. Harry clenched his jaw. He whispered, "Expecto Patronum." A silver stag burst from under the cloak and slammed into the Dementors. The swarm recoiled, hissing, confusion rippling through them. Dumbledore's eyes flicked back for a second, surprised. Ainz's skull turned slightly, observing. "A construct of positive force," Ainz said. Voice calm even here. "Interesting." Harry shook, but he held the spell. The Dementors pulled back enough for Ainz to drop the barrier and move forward. They reached the place where the corridor ended at an old stone archway. Not a normal doorway. An arch covered in ancient markings. Cold poured out of it like breath. Dumbledore stopped. Snape's face went tight. "That's not supposed to be here." Ainz stared at the arch. He could feel it. A thin boundary. A place between life and death. He had heard whispers from portraits about a veil. This felt like it. Dumbledore's voice was low. "This is not a Hogwarts relic," he said. "This feels like the Department of Mysteries," Snape finished, voice harsh. Ainz's skull tilted. A doorway was placed here. Dumbledore nodded once. Yes. And that meant Voldemort had reached into the Ministry's deepest secrets. Or Voldemort had created something similar himself. Either way, it was bad. The archway shimmered, and from beyond it, a voice slid out like a snake. Not loud, not shouted. Soft, certain, and cold. Ainz Ooal gown. Harry's stomach dropped. He knew that voice even without the scar burning. Hermione's grip tightened on Harry's sleeve. Ron whispered, "That's him." Dumbledore's posture sharpened. Snape's wand lifted. Ainz stood still. The voice continued, amused. "You protect children. How noble." Ainz did not speak yet. The voice laughed softly. "You pretend you are calm, but you are alone." Ainz's staff tightened in his hand. That hit too close. Voldemort continued, "Sweet as poison. Join me. I can help you find what you lost. I know how to anchor souls. I know how to bring back what is gone." Dumbledore's voice cut in, firm. "Do not listen." Ainz did not answer Voldemort. He answered the situation. He stepped closer to the archway, studying it like a problem. Then he said, "Calm, you are trying to bind the castle's dead to this doorway." Voldemort's voice purred. "And you see it? Good." Ainz's skull tilted. "But you do not control me." Voldemort's voice turned sharper. "Not yet." The archway pulsed. Nearly headless Nick screamed again, his form stretching toward it like smoke being pulled by a vacuum. Other ghosts flickered in the walls, dragged by the same force. Ainz's mind moved fast. If he destroyed the archway with brute force, he might rip the boundary wide open. If he ignored it, Hogwarts would bleed itself into that gap. So he did what he always did when brute force was risky. He controlled the field. Ainz lifted his staff and spoke a spell in a language none of them knew. A circle of dark blue light spread across the floor. It hummed like a low drum. The pulling force hit the circle and slowed. Ghosts stopped stretching so hard, their forms steadied a fraction. Dumbledore's eyes widened. "You stabilized them." Ainz's voice stayed flat. "Temporarily." Snape's eyes narrowed. "How?" Ainz replied simply, "By imposing a boundary." Voldemort's voice hissed. "Clever." Then the voice sharpened with anger. "But you must choose. Keep holding them, or save your living." Ainz's skull angled up. "What do you mean?" Dumbledore demanded. A cold laugh slid from the arch. And above them, far up in the castle, screams rose. Real screams. Children's screams. Voldemort had timed it perfectly. While the adults were dragged down here, something else was happening upstairs. Snape's face went pale. Diversion. Dumbledore's eyes flared with rage that he rarely showed. Minerva. He turned to run. Ainz did not move. Because he understood the trick. Voldemort wanted Dumbledore to leave. Voldemort wanted the circle to fail. Voldemort wanted the ghosts ripped apart so the castle's old magic broke. Ainz spoke, calm but heavy. Go. Dumbledore stopped, eyes snapping to Ainz. Ainz continued. Protect the children. I will hold this. Snape's voice was sharp. You can't. Ainz cut him off, not with anger, but with certainty. I can, Ainz said. Dumbledore hesitated for one heartbeat. Then he nodded once. Because he had to. He raced up the corridor, wand ready, moving faster than anyone Harry had ever seen. Snape stayed behind, eyes wide. You want me to leave you alone with a Dark Lord's trap? Ainz's skull turned. Yes. Snape's jaw clenched. No. He moved to Ainz's side, wand up. Ainz did not argue. He did not need Snape's help to cast. But he understood the value of a witness, and the value of someone who knew this world's tricks. Voldemort's voice returned, softer now. How kind of you, it said, holding the door like a servant. Ainz's staff tapped once. I am not your servant, Ainz said. Voldemort's voice chuckled. Then prove it. The pulling force surged again. Ainz's circle shook. He held it. He could feel something uncomfortable now. Not pain. A pressure in the rules. This world's soul magic was not the same as his own. He could stabilize it, yes. But he could not fully control it without understanding the why. That was the true threat. Not that he was weak. That the system was different. Ainz said quietly to Snape, This arch is a hook. Snape's voice was tight. For ghosts. Ainz's skull tilted. For me. Snape's eyes narrowed. How? Ainz's answer was simple. He wants to learn my reaction. My priority. Snape swallowed. Because he realized Voldemort was studying Ainz like Ainz studied books. Ainz held the boundary until the screams upstairs faded into distant noise. Then the pulling eased. Voldemort's voice spoke again, satisfied. Good, it said. You stayed. Ainz's skull turned toward the archway, cold anger building behind calm. Voldemort continued, voice smooth. Now I know what you are, not just power. A rule. Ainz did not answer. He held the circle a moment longer. Then he made a careful choice. He did not destroy the arch. He did not chase Voldemort into the unknown. He sealed the space around it instead, layering his own barrier over the castle's stone like a lid. The archway dimmed. The pulling stopped. Ghosts snapped back into shape, drifting away in exhausted silence. Nearly headless Nick slumped against the air like a man sitting down after almost drowning. Snape breathed hard, staring at Ainz like he was seeing him for the first time. Voldemort's voice faded, distant now. But we will speak again, it whispered. Then it was gone. The corridor warmed a fraction. The castle still felt wrong, but it was not ripping apart anymore. Ainz lowered his staff. He had won the moment, but he could feel the cost. Voldemort had learned something, and that was never free. Upstairs, the diversion had been a wave of panic. Not Death Eaters in the halls. Not a duel in the Great Hall. Something worse. A sudden cold that spread through classrooms like a living fog. Students had dropped their quills. Some had fainted. Some had started crying without knowing why. McGonagall had moved like fire through the castle, shouting orders, pushing students into safe rooms, forcing calm through force of will. She had seen a Dementor press its face against a window, trying to reach the despair inside. She had driven it off with a Patronus, jaw clenched so hard it hurt. When Dumbledore arrived, the school was shaken but standing. He found McGonagall in a corridor, breathing hard. Albus, she said, voice tight. What is happening? Dumbledore's eyes were darker than usual. Voldemort is reaching into places he should not reach. McGonagall's face tightened. And your guest? Dumbledore looked down the corridor, toward where Ainz had held the boundary. "He held the line," Dumbledore said quietly. McGonagall's shoulders tensed. "For us?" Dumbledore nodded. "Yes." McGonagall's voice lowered. "That makes him more dangerous." Dumbledore did not deny it. He simply said, "It also makes him more complicated." After that night, Hogwarts could not pretend this was just a strange visitor anymore. The castle itself had shown a new weakness, and Voldemort had shown a new kind of plan. In the days that followed, the debates exploded. In staff meetings, professors argued. "He should leave," said one. "He should stay," said another. "He's a weapon. He's a disaster. He's the only thing Voldemort seems to hesitate around." Dolores Umbridge smiled through all of it. She issued decrees. She demanded meetings. She wrote reports. She tried to make Ainz attend evaluations, like he was a student who had broken curfew. Ainz ignored her, and every time he ignored her, the ministry's pressure grew. But something else grew too. A rumor among students. A story. That the Skeleton King had stood between the school and a doorway to death. That he had held the dead together with his own magic. That he had chosen the castle over chasing power. The rumor was messy and wrong in parts. But the core was true. And the core made people look at Ainz in a new way. Not as a monster hiding in the dark, but as a wall. A cold wall. A wall that could still crush you if you touched it wrong. But a wall that had, for now, stood on their side. Ainz returned to the library the next night. He opened another book. Hermione watched from behind a shelf, eyes wide. Ron whispered, "He's really just studying after all that?" Harry stared at the bone fingers turning pages. Then Harry saw it. Ainz's hand paused on a page. Just for a second. Not like a dramatic moment. Like a tired moment. Like a person who wanted to sigh but had no lungs. And Harry realized something simple. Ainz was not relaxing. Ainz was building. Because in a world he did not understand, building was how he survived. And Voldemort had just told him, without even being in the room, "I am building too." Weeks passed, but Hogwarts did not return to normal. It learned a new kind of normal instead. In the mornings, students still hurried to class. Owls still flew over the lake. The Great Hall still smelled like toast and ink and wet robes. But now there was also a quiet rule nobody wrote down. Do not start trouble near the Skeleton King. They did not call him that to his face, not usually. They said it in whispers behind tapestries and under staircases. And every time Ainz Ooal walked through a hallway, the castle seemed to hold its breath for him. Ainz did not sleep. He did not eat. He did not get tired the way humans did. So his days became long lines of study. He read about wards. He read about founders. He read about the ministry. He read about soul magic and the veil and the few times wizards had tried to pull someone back from death. He asked Dumbledore for books. Dumbledore provided what he could without handing over a weapon to the wrong hands. Snape watched this arrangement like it was a cup of poison left on a table. McGonagall watched it like it was a dragon egg left in a nursery. Umbridge watched it like it was an insult to her authority. She smiled through it all anyway. Every few days, she posted another decree on a wall. More rules. More restrictions. More punishments. Rules for teachers. Rules for clubs. Rules for movement between wings. Rules for non-human entities. She wrote Ainz's name once, on paper, in careful letters. She underlined it. Then she tried to make that underline into a chain. It did not work. Ainz treated her paper the same way he treated a weak spell. He acknowledged it existed. Then he ignored it. That was the part that made Umbridge truly angry. Not fear. Not danger. Disobedience. One afternoon, she marched into the library with 2 ministry wizards behind her. Each carried a case. They looked pale. They looked like men who wished they were somewhere else. Madame Pince nearly fainted when Umbridge waved a paper in her face. "Inspection," Umbridge sang. "Safety check." Ainz sat at a table with a stack of books so tall it blocked his skull from most students' view. Snape stood nearby, arms crossed, like he was waiting for a fight. Umbridge stopped in front of Ainz's table. She did not step too close. She was not stupid. "By decree," she said sweetly. You are to submit to a magical restraint for evaluation. Ainz closed his book with one slow motion. He looked at her. No, he said. Umbridge's smile twitched. Oh, but this is not a request. She nodded at the ministry wizards. They opened the cases. Inside were silver bands etched with runes. Old anti-dark charms. Old creature control tools. They were the kind of thing people used when they wanted to pretend they were brave. The two wizards lifted the bands with shaking hands. Ainz did not rise. He did not attack. He simply raised his left hand, palm outward. The air between them thickened. The two ministry wizards froze in place. Not like they chose to stop, like their bodies had been paused. Their arms stayed lifted, their fingers stayed curled around the silver bands, their eyes stayed wide. Umbridge's smile collapsed for a heartbeat. What? She began. Ainz spoke calmly, as if he was correcting a student. Do not bring shackles to a king, he said. Umbridge's face flushed bright pink. You are in a school, she snapped, voice rising. You will follow the rules of this institution and the laws of the ministry. Ainz's skull tilted. I have followed Dumbledore's rules, he said. Not yours. Umbridge's eyes narrowed. I am the ministry's voice. Ainz's answer was simple. Then your voice is weak. Snape's mouth twitched. It was not quite a smile, but it was close enough to make Umbridge notice. Her eyes darted to him, furious. Then she turned back to Ainz, breathing hard, trying to get her sweetness back like a mask she could pull over her face. She failed. Release them, she hissed. Ainz held her gaze for a long moment. Then he lowered his hand. The ministry wizards stumbled, arms dropping, gasping like they had been underwater. Umbridge stepped back, smoothing her cardigan with hands that shook. This will be in my report, she said, voice sharp. Ainz nodded once, polite. Good. Umbridge spun and marched away like a kettle about to whistle. When she was gone, Madame Pince stared at Ainz as if the library might explode. Snape leaned in slightly. You could have killed them, Snape said quietly. I could, Ainz replied. Snape's eyes were hard. And you didn't. Ainz closed his book again, slower this time. Killing the weak proves nothing. Snape's voice dropped even lower. Control does. Ainz looked at him. It does, Ainz agreed. Snape stiffened at the agreement, because it felt like a trap. Ainz opened the book and returned to reading, as if the whole scene had been a small interruption. From behind a shelf, Hermione watched with both hands pressed over her mouth. Ron whispered, that was like watching a teacher tell off a monster. Harry didn't reply. He was thinking about how Ainz never raised his voice, and how that somehow made it scarier. Dumbledore met Ainz that evening in the headmaster's office. It was quiet. The fire crackled. Fawkes preened, alert. Dumbledore looked older in the soft light. Not weaker. Just weighed down by the number of threats he had to hold at once. You handled Dolores with restraint, Dumbledore said. Ainz's skull turned. She is Noise. Dumbledore's eyes held a faint sadness. Noise can still move crowds. Ainz tapped his staff once. Then your world is easy to shake. Dumbledore did not argue. Instead, he went to a cabinet and opened it. He did not take anything out. He simply showed Ainz that the cabinet was there, that it held things people should not touch lightly. We need a plan, Dumbledore said. Ainz tilted his skull. I am already forming one. Dumbledore nodded. I suspected you were. Ainz paused, then said, You worry I will build a fortress inside your fortress. Dumbledore's eyes stayed steady. Yes. Ainz's voice was calm. You should. McGonagall would have bristled at that. Snape would have called it a threat. Dumbledore heard it as honesty. What do you want, Ainz? Dumbledore asked. Ainz was silent for a moment. Then he answered clearly. I want to return to my domain, Ainz said. I want my people. Dumbledore's gaze softened just a little. And if you cannot? Ainz's staff tightened in his hand. For the first time in a while, his calm felt thinner. Then I will not drift, Ainz said. I will not become a wandering danger. I will choose a purpose. Dumbledore took a slow breath. Purpose can save a man, he said, or break him. Ainz tilted his skull. You think I am a man. Dumbledore did not smile. I think you are a mind. Ainz accepted that. Dumbledore stepped closer. Voice quiet. Hogwarts can be your purpose, he said. For now. Not as a cage, not as a leash. Ainz did not answer right away. Dumbledore continued. Careful. This school stands in the center of a war, he said. Children are targets, secrets are weapons, and Voldemort is changing. Ainz's skull angled slightly. I know. Dumbledore's eyes sharpened. Then I ask you directly. Not as a minister. Not as a jailer. He held Ainz's gaze. Will you help protect this place? Dumbledore asked. Ainz's staff tapped once. Define protect, he said. Dumbledore did not flinch. Prevent massacre, Dumbledore said. Prevent collapse. Prevent Voldemort from turning our world into a grave. Ainz's pause was long. Not because he enjoyed the drama, because he was making sure his choice would not become a trap. Finally, he said, I will protect what is within these walls when the threat is severe. Dumbledore's shoulders eased a fraction. And in return, Dumbledore asked. Ainz's voice stayed calm. Autonomy, Ainz said. Access to knowledge. And no attempts to bind my mind. Dumbledore nodded once. Agreed. Ainz added, If I see danger, I act. I will not wait for paperwork. Dumbledore's eyes flicked, a hint of amusement and pain together. That, I understand. Ainz stood still. Then he said quietly, Your enemy will not stop. He is testing me. Dumbledore's gaze hardened. Yes. Ainz's skull tilted. He will try to hook me again. Dumbledore's voice was low. Then we will be ready. Ainz's staff tapped once. Then let the hook come, Ainz said. Dumbledore did not like that tone. It sounded like confidence. It also sounded like someone who had decided that waiting was worse than risk. Voldemort's next move did not arrive with laughter in the street. It arrived with a whisper in the dark. Ainz was alone in the library late at night. Not truly alone because Hogwarts was never truly empty. Portraits watched, ghosts drifted, the castle listened. But there were no living eyes close enough to hear what happened. Ainz sat with an old book open in front of him, one that spoke of the three brothers in the Hallows like it was a bedtime story. He was not reading it for comfort. He was reading it for patterns. Then the air near his table rippled, like heat above stone. Ainz's fingers stopped turning the page. A voice slid out of the ripple. Soft. Smooth. Ainz Ooal. Ainz's skull turned slowly. The voice was not loud. It did not need to be. It carried authority built from murder and certainty. I know you can hear me, Voldemort said. Ainz did not answer. Voldemort chuckled, quiet, still pretending you are calm. Ainz's staff tapped once. I am calm, Ainz said. Voldemort's voice purred. Then you will listen. Ainz waited. Voldemort continued. You want your people. You want your home. You want the thing you lost. Ainz's fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the book. Voldemort's voice softened, almost kind. I understand that hunger. I understand being alone. Ainz's skull angled. Voldemort's tone shifted, sharp under the softness. Join me, not as a servant, as an ally. Ainz said nothing. Voldemort pressed on, patient. I will help you open paths between worlds. I will give you access to secrets older than this castle. I will help you anchor what you are, here, safely. Ainz's staff remained still. Voldemort added, very carefully, and you will help me end Dumbledore. Ainz finally spoke, voice calm. No. The ripple trembled, like Voldemort had smiled. Predictable, Voldemort whispered. You think you are above choice. Ainz replied, I choose. Voldemort's voice turned colder. Then you choose to remain alone. Ainz's skull tilted. That is my burden, Ainz said. Voldemort's voice hissed softly, almost disappointed. So noble. So proud. Ainz did not rise. He did not threaten. He simply said, You are wasting your time. Voldemort laughed, a quiet, sharp sound. No, Ainz, I am investing it. The ripple shifted, and for a split second, Ainz felt it. Not a spell aimed at his body. A thin pressure aimed at something deeper. A question pushed against the rules of his existence. A hook, searching for a place to catch. Ainz's staff tapped once, harder. The pressure vanished. The ripple faded. Voldemort's last words drifted out, satisfied. Now I know where to aim. Then the air went still again. Ainz sat silent. His calm did not change. But inside, his mind moved like a storm. Voldemort had touched something he should not be able to touch. That meant Voldemort had found a bridge. And bridges could be used both ways. Ainz closed the Hallow Book. He stood. And for the first time since arriving, he made a decision that was not just research. It was structure. He was going to build a boundary Voldemort could not cross. Even if Hogwarts did not understand what it was. The next night, the castle screamed. Not in sound. In magic. The wards flared like a living skin reacting to a blade. Portraits snapped awake, yelling warnings. Ghosts flickered in the halls like broken lights. And deep below, near the place where the false archway had appeared before, that cold pulling force returned. Stronger, cleaner, more focused. Voldemort was not testing anymore. He was attempting. Dumbledore felt it at once. He was already moving before the first student's scream echoed. McGonagall was in the corridor, wand up, barking orders. Students to the common rooms. Now, Snape appeared like a shadow, and Ainz arrived without being summoned, staff in hand, calm as stone. Dumbledore met him at a staircase landing. "It is the veil," Dumbledore said. Ainz's skull tilted. "Yes." Snape's eyes were sharp. "And you knew this was coming?" Ainz did not deny it. "Yes." McGonagall's jaw tightened. "Then why did you not warn us sooner?" Ainz answered evenly. "Because you would have argued. Now you will act." McGonagall looked like she wanted to shout. Dumbledore cut in firm. "Minerva, protect the students." McGonagall hesitated for one heartbeat. Then she nodded and ran, robes snapping like flags. Dumbledore turned to Snape. "With me." Snape moved at once. Ainz followed. Harry followed too, under the invisibility cloak with Hermione and Ron, because fear did not stop them, and rules never had. They reached the lower corridor. It was worse than before. The air was colder, heavy with despair. The stone had frost on it, and this time, the doorway was not just shimmering. It was open. A dark arch stood in the corridor like a mouth. Beyond it, there was not a room. There was a curtain of shadow, moving like cloth in wind that did not exist. Whispers slid through it. Not words. Voices without bodies. Harry's knees went weak under the cloak. Hermione clutched his sleeve so hard it hurt. Ron made a small, terrified sound. Dumbledore lifted his wand. His face was calm, but his eyes were hard. Snape's wand was up, ready to strike at anything that moved. Ainz stepped forward, and the pulling began. Not just on ghosts now. On living warmth. Harry felt it tug at his chest, like sadness trying to drag him forward. Hermione's breath hitched. Ron's eyes filled with tears he didn't understand. Dumbledore's face tightened for the first time. Then Voldemort's voice came from beyond the veil, clear and pleased. "Welcome," he said, "to the place your world hides." Dumbledore's voice cut through the cold. "Tom." A soft laugh. "Albus." Ainz did not speak to Voldemort yet. He studied the veil like it was a spell diagram. He could feel layers on it. Old death magic. Ministry magic. Founder-adjacent magic. And something else. A thin strand reaching toward him like a fishing line. Voldemort had built a binding attempt that used the veil as a lever. Not to kill Ainz. To attach. To claim. Voldemort's voice was smooth. "Ainz Ooal, I offered you a choice." Ainz replied calmly, "And I refused." Voldemort sighed, dramatic and fake. "Then I will take." The pulling surged. Ainz's robe fluttered. Not because the air moved, because the rules moved. Ainz felt the hook press again at his core. Searching. Searching for a soul the way Voldemort understood souls. Ainz did not have a Horcrux. But he did have identity. He did have a self. Voldemort was trying to grab that self and tie a knot around it. Dumbledore stepped forward, wand raised, voice sharp. "You will not." A flash of light struck the edge of the veil. The veil shuddered, but it did not close. Voldemort laughed softly. "You cannot shut a door you do not control." Snape fired a curse into the stone around the arch, trying to break the anchors. The stone cracked. The veil stayed. Voldemort's work held. Harry felt his scar twinge, not the full burn, but a warning flare. He knew Voldemort was close to something important. Hermione's whisper was shaky. "He's using the veil like a net." Ron's voice trembled. "A net for him?" Harry stared at Ainz. Ainz did not look afraid. He looked focused. Ainz lifted his staff. He did not attack with a giant spell. He did not summon an army. He did not turn the corridor into a crater. Instead, he did something that made Dumbledore's eyes widen. Ainz spoke a spell, low and precise. A circle of light formed on the floor again, but this time it was not dark blue. It was clear and sharp, like a clean ring cut into reality. It spread outward. It pressed against the veil's pulling force like a hand pressing against a door. The tugging on Harry's chest eased. Hermione inhaled sharply like she had been drowning. Ron wiped his eyes with his sleeve, embarrassed and relieved. Dumbledore felt the pressure lift from his mind. Snape's shoulders loosened a fraction. Voldemort's voice grew colder. "Ah, you put your own rules on my rules." Ainz's voice stayed calm. "Yes." Voldemort hissed. "You think that will stop me?" Ainz did not answer with words. He answered with action. For the first time, the corridor stuttered. Time did not fully freeze, but it slowed enough that even Dumbledore felt it. Dust hung in the air. Frost drifted like tiny stars. Snape's blink felt heavy. Harry's heartbeat sounded loud in his own ears. Ainz moved. He stepped forward, through the slowed world, and placed the tip of his staff near the base of the archway. He tapped the stone once. A clean crack sound echoed. The anchors Voldemort had hidden in the stone runes, cursed nails, soul thread points lit up for a blink. Ainz spoke another spell. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. The lit anchors shattered like glass. The veil shuddered violently. Voldemort's voice snapped, furious now. "No." Time returned to normal like a snapped rope. The veil's pull weakened. But Voldemort did not stop. He surged, pushing more force through the archway. The corridor shook. A shadowy shape pressed against the veil from the other side, trying to form. Not a full body. A partial arrival. A threat. Dumbledore stepped forward, Elder Wand steady, and cast a powerful binding charm that wrapped around the arch like chains of light. Snape added his own spells, sharp and clever, cutting at the last remaining threads. But Voldemort was stubborn. His voice turned sweet again, trying one last angle. "Ainz," he whispered, "I can give you your people." The hook pressed again, not as force, but as temptation. Ainz's staff stayed steady. Ainz's answer was quiet. "You cannot," he said. Voldemort's voice hissed. "How do you know?" Ainz paused, and the pause felt heavy, not dramatic. "Just true. Because you do not give," Ainz said. "You only take." For a moment, the corridor went very still. Even Voldemort's whispers seemed to falter. Then Voldemort roared, and the veil surged one last time. Ainz responded. He did not use a spell that would erase an army. He used authority. Ainz lifted his free hand and spoke one word. "Kneel." The air slammed down like a weight. Not on the teachers, not on the students hidden behind them. On the force coming through the veil, on Voldemort's attempt to push his will into this space. The shadow shape on the other side buckled as if struck. Voldemort's voice choked for half a second. Dumbledore stared, stunned, because he recognized what had happened. Voldemort was used to bending others. He was not used to being bent. Ainz did not hold it long. He did not need to. He had made the point. He dropped the pressure and spoke another spell, fast and clean, sealing the area around the veil with layers of barrier like stacked doors. The veil dimmed. The pulling stopped. The corridor warmed a fraction. Ghosts steadied in the walls, no longer flickering, and Voldemort's voice returned one last time, quiet and venomous. "This is not over," it promised. Ainz replied calmly. "No." Dumbledore held his wand steady, but his eyes were on Ainz now, not the veil. Snape's gaze was hard, but different. Not only suspicion, also calculation. Harry, under the cloak, realized his hands were shaking. Hermione's eyes shone with fear and awe. Ron swallowed and whispered, "He just told Voldemort to kneel." And that was when Ainz turned away from the veil. He looked at Dumbledore, not like a servant, not like a guest, like an equal leader deciding the terms of a border. "I will place a permanent seal here," Ainz said. "Your wards are not enough for this." McGonagall would have argued. The Ministry would have screamed. But Dumbledore simply nodded. "What will it cost?" Dumbledore asked. Ainz's staff tapped once. "Nothing you will feel. Only permission." Dumbledore's gaze held steady. "You have it." Ainz gave a single, slow nod. Then he added, "There is also another condition." Snape's eyes narrowed. "Here it comes." Ainz's skull tilted toward Snape. "No more attempts to restrain me with tools like Umbridge brought." Dumbledore's voice was calm. "I will handle Dolores." Ainz looked back at Dumbledore. "And if your ministry does not listen?" Dumbledore's eyes hardened. "Then Hogwarts will listen to Hogwarts." Ainz's staff tapped once, satisfied. He turned back to the corridor. "From this moment," Ainz said, "this place is under my watch." It was not a threat. It was a statement of territory. And somehow, in the cold stone under their feet, Hogwarts seemed to accept it. The next morning, the story spread. Not the truth. A story. It started with portraits, because portraits loved drama. Then it moved through ghosts, because ghosts loved gossip. Then it moved through students, because students loved anything that felt like a secret. The Dark Lord came into the castle. The Skeleton King stopped him. He made the shadows kneel. They fought in the dungeons. Hogwarts almost broke. Hogwarts chose him. Some versions said Ainz had dueled Voldemort face to face. Some versions said Voldemort ran away crying. None of those versions were fully true. But the fear in the castle changed shape anyway. It became less like panic, more like awareness. Ainz returned to his routine. He did not parade. He did not demand worship. He did not try to rule Hogwarts. He studied. He placed invisible boundaries in key places, like quiet locks that only responded when something tried to pull soul energy through the stone. He mapped danger points. He listened to Dumbledore's warnings. He watched Snape's double life with the calm eyes of someone who understood what it meant to serve two sides and belong to neither. And he kept his promise. When there was no severe threat, he stayed in the background. A wall in the corner. A rumor in the hall. A question nobody could answer. Umbridge, of course, tried to push again. She arrived with more papers, more decrees, more stiff ministry escorts. But after the night, the castle shuddered. Even she had begun to fear what she could not control. She still smiled, but her smile now had a tiny crack in it, and Ainz noticed every crack. Dumbledore noticed too. That was their new strange agreement. Dumbledore managed the people. Ainz managed the pressure behind the walls. And Voldemort, somewhere in the dark, learned a new fact. There was something in Hogwarts that did not fear him. Not because it was brave, because it was built differently. And that made it harder to break. The library at night was the closest thing Hogwarts had to silence. Candles floated in slow lines between shelves. The air smelled like paper and dust and old leather. Ainz sat alone at a table with a single book open. Not a spell book this time. A history book. One about Hogwarts founders. He traced the edge of a page with one bone finger, slow and careful. He did not need to do it, but it helped him think. Ainz stared at the words without truly reading them for a moment. In his world, he had a tomb city. He had guardians. He had a throne room full of monsters who called him supreme being and meant it. Here, he had stone walls and children's whispers and an old wizard who trusted too easily but planned too deeply. Ainz's mind drifted to a thought he hated. What if Nazarick never came? What if he was truly alone forever? He felt the familiar pressure of that idea, like a hand around his core. Then he heard soft footsteps. Ainz did not turn right away. He already knew who it was. The walk was careful but stubborn. Harry Potter stopped at the edge of the candlelight. He was alone, no cloak, no friends. His face was pale, his eyes were tired. Ainz turned his skull toward him. Harry swallowed, then stepped closer like someone walking toward a cliff they had to climb. "You saved us," Harry said. Ainz did not answer with comfort. He answered with truth. "I prevented loss," Ainz said. Harry nodded. "That's saving." Ainz paused. Then he said, "Words differ. Results matter." Harry's jaw tightened. "Voldemort tried to do something to you." "Yes," Ainz said. Harry's hands clenched at his sides. "He tries to take everything." Ainz's skull tilted. "Yes." Harry stared at the book. "Are you going to leave?" Ainz's staff, resting beside his chair, did not move. His voice was quiet. "Not yet." Harry's shoulders eased a fraction. Then Harry looked up, and there was a strange bravery in his face. The bravery of someone who had been scared too many times and still chose to ask. "Why are you helping?" Harry asked. "You could just go away, hide. You could let us fight it." Ainz's pause was long. In that pause, Harry's courage almost failed. Then Ainz spoke. "Because I understand what it is to stand in a collapsing world," Ainz said, "and because I do not tolerate chaos near my territory." Harry blinked. "Territory?" Ainz tilted his skull slightly. "This castle is a fortress. Fortresses attract war. If I am inside, the war touches me. I prefer order." Harry stared, trying to fit the words into something he understood. "So you're doing it because it makes sense," Harry said. "Yes," Ainz replied. Harry's face fell for half a second. Then he surprised himself by saying, "That's still better than Umbridge." Ainz was silent. Then very quietly he said, "Yes." It might have been the closest thing to a joke Ainz had made in this world. Harry let out a small breath, almost a laugh, then stopped himself. He grew serious again. "He'll come back," Harry said. Ainz's voice stayed calm. "Yes." Harry's eyes tightened. "And you'll stop him?" Ainz did not promise the way heroes promised. He did not say, "Always." He did not say, "No matter what." He said something colder, and in some ways, more reliable. "If his actions threaten this castle's survival," Ainz said, "I will act." Harry nodded slowly. He did not fully like it, but he understood it. Then Harry said softer, "Do you ever feel lonely?" Ainz paused. There was no face to show emotion, but the air felt heavier for a moment. Ainz answered quietly, "Yes." Harry's throat tightened. He did not know why that hit him so hard. He nodded once, then backed away. "Good night," Harry said. Ainz replied, "Good night." Harry left. Ainz stared at the doorway for a long time after. Then he looked back down at the book. He did not need sleep, but he still felt something like tiredness. Not in his body, in his purpose. He tapped the page once with his finger. He whispered a line to himself, too soft for any portrait to hear. "I will not be taken." Outside the library, Hogwarts continued to breathe. In the Ministry, Umbridge wrote furious reports. In the shadows, Death Eaters whispered rumors about a skeleton king who made fear itself hesitate. And far away, in a cold room lit by dark magic, Voldemort studied. He did not rage. He did not panic. He smiled, thin and sharp. "A boundary," he murmured. "So that is what you are." He traced a finger over a page about the Hallows. Then he turned the page. And the war, like the castle, did not stop. It only changed shape.